Today, we're diving into one of the biggest, most important threads woven through the entire Bible, the story of where God lives. And let me tell you, it's a journey that starts in a pretty unexpected place, not with stone and gold, but with dirt and trees, and it ends with a plot twist that, honestly, nobody saw coming.
So to really get this, we have to start with a question that kind of flips everything we think we know on its head. What if God's first home on earth, the very first temple, wasn't a building at all? What if it was a garden?
Okay, so our story kicks off, of course, in the Garden of Eden. Now, the way Genesis describes this place, it's not just some beautiful paradise. No, it's presented as the original sacred space, the place where heaven and earth were one.
And this isn't just some new idea. Old Testament scholar Gordon Wenham puts it perfectly. He says Eden was designed from the ground up to be an archetypal sanctuary. Basically, its entire reason for existing was to be the place where humanity could live face to face in the direct presence of God.
So, just so we're all on the same page, what is a sanctuary? It's simply a sacred space where God's presence dwells with his people. It's where heaven and earth overlap. In the Bible's first example, it's not a tent, it's not a building, it's Eden.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This whole idea of a garden sanctuary, it becomes the master plan, the blueprint for everything that comes later. Think about the tabernacle in the wilderness, or the massive temple in Jerusalem. Well, it turns out they were both built as intentional echoes of Eden.
I mean, check this out. The parallels are just stunning when you put them side by side. In Eden, God walks among his people. In the temple, his glory fills the place. The temple was covered in carvings of trees and plants, and the famous lampstand, the menorah, was designed to look like a tree, a clear callback to the tree of life. Eden had gold. The temple was literally drenched in it. And maybe the most mind-blowing connection is the language itself. Adam was told to work and keep the garden. Hundreds of years later, the exact same two Hebrew verbs are used to describe the job of the priests who work and guard the temple. Both even had an entrance on the east. You just can't make this stuff up.
So, what's the bottom line here? It's pretty clear. The tabernacle and the temple were built to be like miniature gardens of Eden. They were architectural reminders of that perfect face-to-face relationship with God that humanity had lost.
But, this whole story isn't that simple. There's a major problem, a tragic pattern that repeats itself over and over again, and that is the pattern of exile, of being kicked out of God's presence.
It's like this three-act tragedy that just keeps happening. Step 1, presence. God is dwelling with his people in a sacred space. Step 2, sin. Humanity rebels and disobeys. And then, step 3, exile. The consequences always being cast out, driven away from that sacred presence.
And you can see this exact pattern play out perfectly in the big story. First, Adam and Eve. They're placed in the garden sanctuary right in God's presence. They disobey, and what happens? They're exiled. Fast forward centuries later, the nation of Israel is placed in their own garden, the Promised Land, with God's presence dwelling in the temple. They disobey, and bam, they're exiled from the land and the temple is destroyed. It's the same tragic story, just on a massive national scale.
So after all that doom and gloom, the destruction of the temple, the exile, you'd think that's the end, but it's not. A new kind of hope starts to bubble up through the Old Testament prophets. They start talking about a future restoration.
And the prophets, they paint this incredible picture of what's to come. The prophet Ezekiel has this wild, detailed vision of a new, glorious temple. He sees God's own glory returning to it from the east, and a river of life flowing out from its doors, healing the world, another huge echo of the Garden of Eden. The hope was crystal clear. God was going to provide a magnificent new building to solve the problem.
So the expectation was set. To fix the problem of separation and exile, God was going to build a bigger, better temple, a restored building for a restored presence. But was that really God's ultimate plan? Was that the final answer?
And this, right here, is where the whole story pivots. This is the climax. Because the New Testament comes along and reveals how this ancient hope gets fulfilled, and it is not what anyone expected.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, right? After all this back and forth, this cycle of presence and exile, how is God finally going to fix this? How is his presence going to be restored to humanity? For good this time? Well, the answer starts to unfold right at the beginning of the Gospel of John. He says that Jesus dwelt among us. Now that word in the original Greek is so important. It doesn't just mean lived. It literally means he pitched his tent or he tabernacled among us. John is intentionally using the language of the old tabernacle. And then he says we saw his glory, the very same divine presence that filled the old temple. The connection is unmistakable. Jesus is the new place where God dwells.
And then, if there was any doubt left, Jesus himself just comes right out and says it. He's at the physical temple in Jerusalem and he says, "Destroy this temple and I'll raise it in 3 days." Of course, everyone around him thinks he's talking about the literal building. But John, our narrator, leans in and tells us the temple he had spoken of was his body. And that's the plot twist.
So here it is, the powerful story-ending conclusion, the final answer to the problem of exile, the ultimate sanctuary, the perfect and permanent place where heaven and earth finally meet. It wasn't another building made of stone and gold, it was a person, Jesus Christ. He is the true temple.
And that just leaves us with this one huge thought to chew on. If the dwelling place of God, the true temple, is no longer a specific location on a map, but a person you can know, what does that change about everything?